joining us here today. Just a couple of quick notes before we start. We are streaming and broadcasting on a number of different outlets, including our proud partner Sportsnet and Sportsnet 650. So when it is time for a question, we ask you to raise your hand. We'll make sure we get the microphone to you, and you guys will be able to ask and get answered very quickly. And before we get to any of those questions, we'd like to start with a statement from Francesco.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today. When our family acquired Vancouver Canucks 15 years ago, we understood that this hockey team is much more than a business. For half a century, the Canucks have been a source of passion, pride, and entertainment for people in the city, in the region, and in the province. We understand that we are the stewards of this community asset, that we act on behalf of many stakeholders, and that our supporters share our expectations of commitment, excellence, and achievement. I know our fans and the media are frustrated and unhappy, but I assure you that no one is more frustrated and unhappy than me and my family. I'm also disappointed and surprised. In the off-season, we believed we'd have a much better team than what we've been seeing, that we'd have a better competitive team this year. So now it's time to go into a different direction with a new coach and a new GM. I want to thank Jim, John, Travis, Nolan for all their effort, hard work. They are good people, and they gave their all and their best to this franchise. But the status quo was just not acceptable. My family and I are committed to this team, our fans, and to the great city of Vancouver. We will get this right, and we'll make you proud. Thank you. I think Stan's has a statement here.
Thanks, Francesco. I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to take on this responsibility. I share Francesco's thanks to Jim, John, Travis, and Nolan for their dedication to this team and their friendship. It's a tough part of the business we love. I wish them nothing but success. I have been a Canuck for 40 years. This is my team, my only team. I will always do what's best for this organization. I will always step up when asked to help. Bottom line, our performance this season has not been good enough. We do have some talented young players and a good core to build around, but we need to be better. It is now my job with RJ, Chris, Henrik, Jonathan, and others, strong members in our hockey operation team to help move this team forward in a new direction. There is pride in wearing this Canuck jersey. There is also a huge responsibility that comes with pulling on that jersey. You all know me. It's an honor to be sitting here today. This opportunity and responsibility means the world to me, and I will work extremely hard to get this team back on track.
Thank you, Stewart. We open up for questions. Brendan, Pastor.
Francesco, just wondering about the appointment of Bruce Boudreau as head coach. Why do you feel he's the right fit at this time to come in and coach the team?
Well, Bruce is, he's a veteran coach. He's very experienced, and, his track record speaks for itself. He's had a lot of success, in these type of situations. We just felt that, it was the right time. I think, we want to get back to being a competitive team again. That's what we're hoping for.
You spoke about a search for the next leader of hockey operations in the statement released yesterday. Do you have a timeline for that search? Is that something that you'd like to conclude, say, before the trade deadline, or how do you view that?
Well, we want to get the right person. I think we want to do a thorough and exhaustive search. We want to look at all the candidates that are available, people that are available. There's some people that are under contract that might be available. I mean, we're looking at everything, and hopefully that's the plan, and that's what we're going to be working towards.
Have you consulted with Mike Ford on that process?
Mike Ford, no. I mean, In terms of using a search firm or Mike Ford, you know, this all happened pretty fast. So, but that's something I'm considering, and I think that definitely merits a conversation and to see what they offer. You know, I just need to look into it a little deeper.
Francesco, was seeing a Canucks jersey tossed on the ice the last straw for you? When did the process begin to hire Bruce, and when did you know the end was near for all of them?
So, you know, it's pretty sad to see that. I mean, that wasn't the final decision. You know, I understand the fans' frustration. I mean, this has been something that has been culminating for a couple of weeks. You know, we were hoping for a turnaround. I mean, everybody was optimistic. I was optimistic. You know, probably too patient. Maybe he should have done it sooner. I don't know, but you know, it just came to a point where a decision had to be made. Like something had to be done, and so you know, we decided to hire Bruce. You know, it was a very recent decision.
Francesco, you're very passionate, your family's very passionate about this hockey team. You talked about being stewards of this franchise. Almost 8 years of having Jim here. Do you feel you're any further ahead than when you hired him 8 years ago? And have you honestly looked at this team wondering if you need a rebuild or if you can continue going the same process you've gone?
Well, I mean, I think we have a lot of good young players. We have a good core. We have a great goaltender. There's a lot of good pieces in place. And why it's not working, I don't know. I wish I had the answer. It's very complicated. But I definitely believe in this group. I think they've shown it before. I think everybody in this room knows that what we've seen for the last few years, and so that decision about a rebuild or whatever. I mean, that's going to be the new general manager. He'll come in with his vision, and he'll decide how this is going to be run going forward.
Francesco, I've got a question for you on communication from the organization. We don't hear from you very often like this, so I appreciate you doing this. Last 18 months, we really didn't hear from Jim an awful lot as a senior member and director of this team. And it put Travis in a tough spot. He had to answer questions about a player that was put on leave for sexual misconduct allegations and a player with vaccination issues as well. So I ask you, do you think you guys as an organization communicate with your fans effectively? And also, how important is it to have a public-facing figure above the coach that can sort of present and articulate a vision for this hockey club to the fan base?
It was a loaded question, but let me see. There's three parts into that. I mean, the first part is, in terms of myself, I mean, I let the coach and the general managers talk about the team. It's not something that I should do or want to do. So they're the ones speak on behalf of the team performance. I mean, I come out here when things like this have to happen. More communication. I agree with you. I think that we need more communication from the fans. Something that didn't happen, but I think going forward, I think the person that we hire is going to have to communicate more. I agree with you. And why it didn't happen, I can't really answer that, but I agree with you. I think there needs to be more communication in terms of articulating the vision. We're going to need a leader that's going to come in, whether it's a president or a general manager or a combination of both. We just want to get the right people, and they'll have to articulate that vision.
Francesco, there's a suggestion out there that one of the reasons Jim was kept as long as he was kept was because it gave you influence. It allowed you to have a certain level of control and input. And ultimately, it's your team; you own it. But there's a thought that a larger organization, another president of hockey operations, more resources, and an organization that has more depth might be the way to go. How do you respond to that in terms of your desire to be involved and what the entire process, not just one person that gets hired as a GM, what that process should look like?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the decision has to lay with one person. And, whether you can have 10 people around them or 20 people or one person. And so the general manager is really ultimately responsible for the direction of this team because he picks the players, he picks the coaches, he sets the tone. Whether there should be more people, I mean, that's a decision the general manager makes, what he wants to include around him. So I support the manager. You tell me, what do you need? I'm there to support them. Whatever they need, I give them the support. You know, this question about influence, you know, I mean, this has been going on for a number of years, and, you know, I just like to put it to rest. Listen, owners own, managers manage, coaches coach, players play. Okay, so the minute you cross those lines, right, where a coach wants to be a manager, the manager wants to be a coach, or the owner wants to be a manager, like, there's no alignment anymore. And so, you know, I see my job as supporting the general manager. He comes with a plan, so this is what we think we should do, this is how we're gonna go forward, and if it makes sense, I'm gonna support it.
And
It
if
doesn't
I
make
could just
sense.
jump in there,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to say, I'm in a lot of these meetings and see the progress. I just want to say, Francesco and the Aquilini family has always been supportive of whatever decision that the manager has made. And you could see that in the contracts with the players.
What's your role going to be, and what latitude does Stan have? Is this to shepherd a transition to the next person, or will you get a fair bit of latitude to make moves or to do things between now and the end of the season?
So, I mean, Stan is the interim GM. We're going to be looking for a new GM. And in the meantime, if there's an opportunity that presents itself that makes sense, you know, Stan in this hockey group, he's got Daniel Henrik, you know, Brian Johnson. You know, if he wants to do it and makes sense, I'm going to support it. But the plan is, you know, to find a GM, maybe possibly a president. And in the meantime, Stan is going to help us find that person.
For myself, when I talked to Francesco with the position, I told him that I don't want to be just sitting there watching. I'm going to present things to you. I'm going to be evaluating the players, seeing how the team is going down the road the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then make decisions as we move forward. And I know we've had discussions before, and I'll tell you right now, Francesco and I have disagreed and agreed on things, and it's not going to change. At the end of the day, we want the best for this organization until we find the right people to take over these positions. We're going to push in areas, and I'm going to push Francesco. And I think if there's something that should be had that's going to help this organization, I will talk to Francesco, and I will push him on it.
Francesco, on the subject of autonomy in particular, can you walk us through the process that led to your organization hiring Bruce Boudreau and how involved Stan Smyl was in that process?
So, you know, as you all know, how things have been evolving in the last couple of weeks, you know, not very good. And, you know, it was very frustrating. You know, there came a point in time where, you know, I just said, you know, enough is enough. I talked to Stan, and, you know, whether the decision to replace the coach, the general manager, both, it was evaluating everything. You know, Stan did throw some names to me. And so one of the names was Bruce, and, you know, I called up Bruce. Actually, his agent contacted me, and then started talking to him, and then at some point, very recently, you know, I made him an offer, which I think was a good offer for Bruce and for myself. He accepted it, and he's here today. And, you know, we all know what he can do, and, you know, hopefully, you know, he can make a difference. You know, we're all hoping for that.
If I could just say,
Yeah.
Ian, before you jump in there, the process was discussed within the group, and everyone was frustrated and disappointed, obviously, with the results that were happening and which way we should go. I talked to Francesco about it, and I gave him my thoughts of what he should do. He disagreed with some of them, but there is that where you keep working and saying these things might be available, or this might be the best for this situation. I think what's really important for me in this is that you have a veteran coach come into the situation. And I think that decision after was put in Francesco's hand, and he was able to work out a good deal where we've got an experienced coach in a right situation.
Will interim committee that Stan sort of chairs as interim GM, but that involves Ryan Johnson, Henrik and Daniel, et cetera, will they have any input in your search for new hockey operations leadership on a permanent basis?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be involved in that.
Francesco, just circling back to Bruce Boudreau, or maybe Stan, you can jump in on this. Bruce had a very a knack of getting the most out of his players. His first year in Minnesota, all his key players had great years, and that speaks of being able to reach guys on a different level. You have a lot of impressionable young players who are struggling, but might be able to turn it around quickly under a coach like that. How much did that factor into your decision with Bruce's ability to reach his most important players quickly and get them to perform that quickly? And to me, that speaks of a retool or a rejig or whatever you want. It doesn't speak to me of a rebuild, which is, I don't think that's in your vocabulary, Francesco.
Right, you're asking me or Stan? Oh, both, okay. You know, like we said, you know, Bruce is an experienced coach, right? We wanted someone with experience. I think that was important. You know, there's lots of coaches out there, but we wanted someone with experience. You know, we made a change, GM, coach. We wanted to go with an experienced coach. So, you know, he's steering the ship right now. So he's the one in charge, running the players, and you know, he's had success before, and you know, that was played a big part into this.
Yeah, you speak to just his ability to turn things around quickly.
Yeah, first of all, rejig, like, is that
Yeah.
a new, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Exactly what Francesco just said is two things. Veteran coach, and he's been through it before and has had success. That's the bottom line. You know, that's what you want in this sort of situation going in with this young talent that we have to get the best out of those players, and he's had success doing it.
What about the Twins and just how their role may increase in all of this new committee?
It'll increase every day. I'll tell you, I've gotten to know them more in the last couple months than I knew them as players. They played, 17, 18 years here. I got to know them, and they're very passionate about bringing a winner here. And they'll do everything possible to do it. And they're not hold back on their opinions. They're very opinions. They are very bright in the game, obviously. So I'm going to be leaning on them, with Francesco leaning on them for their ideas and what their decisions on moving forward.
There's also been a suggestion that in the locker room, the players may have lost faith in the organization, just based on what started last year during COVID, all the way through, you know, the last 2 off seasons, all of it. What message do you think this sends to them?
I think it sends the right message. I think everyone was waiting for something to happen. Things weren't working. Was it the decision on the GM? Was it the decision of coach? We didn't have all those answers. And the players are looking around for answers. And what happens when you get to this point is that you start finger pointing. Players point at the coach, and the coach points at the GM, and the GM points at the coach, and the coach points at the ownership. We all have a responsibility here. You're all professional athletes. And the only people that are going to make any difference is that players in the dressing room and the sense of direction we want to go as an organization. And I think we lost track of that. For what reasons, I don't know. But we're going to get the sense of direction on track. And that's from the ownership, Daniel and Henrik and RJ and Chris and myself. But we're the only ones, and we're only ones that can lead it out of this. And that. But there's no more finger pointing here. It's all us to get the job done.
Question for each of you. Francesco, you mentioned perhaps a president. So that would be another layer in that hierarchy you talked about. How much value do you think there is in having a position between you and the manager? So would that simplify the task for the GM and the hockey operations people if you have a president who speaks to you directly?
Yeah, if you have a president, I don't have to be doing this, but, but everything is on the table. I think, you you know, if we can find the right person, you know, president is, because they're not really general manager, they're not really the coach, it's, you know, they're kind of, you know, involved at an upper level, and, you know, I think it would have to be someone that, you know, comes in as a tandem, president and GM, they come in together, they know each other, they can work together. Those two people have to work very closely together, and you'd have to find the perfect fit. And that's not easy to find, but that option's on the table. You know, if that opportunity is there, if there's somebody that we could find that can come in as a president / GM or a general manager, you know, a president with a younger general manager, maybe can be learned from the senior president, somebody more hockey experience. That combination, I mean, I don't know yet. I mean, my wish list and what we can actually achieve by the time when we need to get it done is different. So we'll see. Everything's on the table.
And Stan, the players who spoke this morning talked about accountability, and that seemed to be what you were referencing on your last answer about everybody being accountable. So I ask you, how much do you believe that these players can be accountable and play their way out of the position that they put the team in, rather than you and your group having to make changes to find players who can fix things?
You know, Ian, I think the players to get to the NHL are all put in different situations, and pressure is one of them, how they deal with pressure. Accountability is another one, and I think they've gone through that experience at some level. They have had that, and this is what we've gotten away from within our organization. For me, I talked to Francesco about an identity. You know, what is our identity, and where does it start? It starts with your accountability. It starts with your effort, and those things are all important. So I think the players just have to step back here a bit, and see what's gotten them there and their experiences, and use that now. And that to get out of it, it's not just going to be one individual. As you know, it's going to take a team, and they've got to come back to being a team and make it hard to play against. That's the identity I want in this organization. Be hard to play against. So I'm lining up against you, and I'm going to make it as miserable as possible. And that was my message. Francesco, I talked to the players about that this morning, and I think that's an important area, and that's an area we've got to start in. And then when you have the talent that we talk about, and you put that together, you start getting better and start winning as a team.
Francesco, we haven't had a chance to talk to you about the business side of running this team. I don't know if people know the harsh reality of playing during the bubble, the costs associated with that. Can you talk about the difficulties of running an organization the last 3 years, the last 2 years with COVID? And secondly, I know you've had to pare down the operations. Do you see now, with people back in the building, hopefully revenue's coming back up, do you see an expansion of your hockey operations and your hockey department? Can you maybe just talk about that reality?
Yeah, it's been, you know, it's been hard these last couple of years. I mean, it's been super difficult. I mean, you know, laying people off, you know, having an empty building, you know, it's been, you know, I can't even describe it. It's been horrible. But, you know, we had to deal with it and move forward. You know, now, you know, we have fans back in the building. And so I think going forward, you know, listen, I've always provided all the resources they need, right, to put a, you know, good competitive team on the ice. We spent to the cap. I always ask the manager, and I say, what do you need? Give them whatever they need. And so that's really my job. My job is to support them and give them all the resources. So, and that will continue. That'll always continue from our side, from my family, from my dad and my brothers. You know, when we have to write the check, you know, we're there because we want a winning team. We're very proud. You know.
5 more minutes, please. We got a question from Stan.
Francesco, when it
Yeah.
comes to what happened the past 7 to 8 years and what you learned from that process, is there a lesson that you learned that you want to do differently moving forward to a new regime and a new future?
Well, I mean, there's always lessons. You can always, life is a learning experience. Is there any one particular lesson? I mean, there's so many lessons. I'm always getting better. I'm always learning. You know, I think, you know, from this last 7 years, I think, you know, building a culture is really important. I think that's probably what I learned, is about culture and about values and what you collectively believe together. I think that's something that's always evolving, and, you know, organizations, even outside of hockey, it's all about culture. You know, coming together as a group and believing into something, making you do something that, you know, it's probably beyond your capability because you want to do it because your group is there. So that's what I learned about culture. That's really important.
Francesco, your answer, or your statement, excuse me,
Yeah.
mentioned a word excellence, which I don't think we've heard a lot of in this room over the past 5 years
Yeah.
anyway. It's been a lot of meaningful games in March, just making the playoffs. Does your club, as you sort of turn a page, does your club need to aspire to more than it has in recent seasons?
Absolutely. I mean, excellence is our standard. It's in everything we do. I mean, it's us as human beings. And, you know, we're working hard. That's what the message I try to push down is excellent. We want to be the best we can be.
The excellent candidate is a candidate from the past, would you consider them?
And sorry, an excellent,
The excellent candidate, the excellence
Yeah.
candidate is a candidate from the past, would you consider them?
like somebody that's been employed here before, everything's on the table. I mean, I'm not going to say no to anything.
Will Mark Bergevin be here in the not-so-distant future to talk about a possible position?
I know Mark.
Next couple days, maybe?
Yeah, no, I think Mark wants to just take it easy for a minute. You know, he'd been with the Canadians for 10 years, and I think, and I haven't spoken to him, but, you know, I'm sure he just wants to sit back and just, you know, I guess reflect. But anything is possible. I mean, I'm not going to rule anything out, you know.
When you guys said communication was an issue, when did that first become something you realized?
Communication,
In terms of internally, external emails, something you talked about, Stan mentioned it as well, there was an issue with communication.
yeah, did you mention, I didn't mention communicate, did you mention, with communication,
If I just follow up, I'm not sure. I'm just saying, communication is such an important value in any organization you're doing. And you gotta have the game plan and having got people work within your group that this is the plan, this is how we're gonna communicate, not just within our office, but with the players, with everyone else in this organization. So I think communication is a real key nowadays to getting the most out of the people that are working with you.
Stan, last question is, can I ask you, has there been a disconnect, you've worked in the hockey operations department for a while, between the players that you've been developing on the farm and bringing them up? And I ask that when I see Jonah Gadrovich playing games for San Jose, Cole Inda skating for Seattle at times. These are guys who you guys spent time developing, but I don't know if they ever got their fair shake here. Has there been a disconnect with what's been going on the farm to implementing them here in your lineup in
No,
Vancouver?
I don't think there's a disconnect at all. I just have to say that it's very important, and it's an area that we're going to spend a lot more time on in the development of our players. I have my own plan with when you have players down in your farm team. I just want to say that over the years that, you know, we lost a few players on waivers, and there's a reason why we lost them, because we developed them so well, you know, and it just didn't pan out with what here we had to put them on waivers. Our coaching staff, Trent and his staff down there, have done a really good job, you know, because other teams are wanting these players. We just didn't have the mix at that time to fit these guys in our lineup.
Two more, we got John, Garrett, and Vic. So-
Stan, you talked about being a Canuck for 40 years, and I was for a brief time too, but now, the sweater on the ice thing. And a lot of people say, well, the fans have the rights and pay their money and all that kind of stuff. It must have just eaten you up to see a Canuck sweater being thrown on the ice.
It was, the end of that game was difficult. I think just hearing the fans, so the end of that game was very difficult to watch. And that's when I felt I have to get involved here a lot more and express my views maybe a little stronger. But like I said, at the end of the day, we're all responsible, from the players to the management, to the coaches, to the ownership, and we've got to make it better. I think we've taken a step back in the direction we want to go, and we got to put that game plan together and follow through on it, John.
Last one to pick.
We saw what happened on Saturday, Francesco, and years ago, at the end of the Mike Gillis era, fans also voiced their displeasure. Why does it need to escalate to that level if people were waiting for things to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's another good question. I mean, these are difficult decisions. These are not easy. I mean, to fire everybody at the same time, that's a hard thing to do. And, you know, maybe I was a little bit too patient. I was hoping for a turnaround. You know, we're losing these goals by one game, by one goal. And, you know, maybe I was too optimistic. And so, you know, we made the change when we made the change.
Thank you, everyone. We'll wrap there, and we'll bring up Bruce Boudreau in a second. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Take on the position you're now in?
No.
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 Thanks, guys.
Thank you.